Welcome back to the deep dive. Today, well, we're doing a really deep exploration into something called RMPocalypse.
That's right.
And this isn't just some minor software bug we're talking about. This story, it really sent shockwaves through cloud computing.
It really did, because
Right.
it points to a crack, not in the applications, but like in the hardware foundation.
Okay.
The stuff we were told was basically rock solid.
Exactly, the very foundation.
And, for almost everyone using cloud services today, which is pretty much everyone, this idea of confidential computing is super important. It's that basic promise, right? That your really sensitive stuff can run out there in the cloud, totally locked down, encrypted, isolated, even, crucially, from the people running the cloud data center.
Even from the provider, yeah.
Yeah, and RMPocalypse, or CVE 2025-00033, if you want the official tag, it basically showed how this really complex hardware-based security feature, specifically the one in AMD's big server chips, the EPYC series, could be completely defeated. And not by some super complex crypto attack, but by, well, a timing glitch. Simple, but devastating.
Okay, so there's a lot to unpack here for you. We need to cover, let's say, three main things today.
Okay.
First, we really need to get our heads around this digital safe room idea. What is confidential computing, really? What's the tech?
Makes sense.
Second, we'll dig right into the flaw itself, this RMPocalypse. Why could a timing error, like during startup, just shatter the whole security model? It sounds weird.
It is surprising, yeah.
And then third, we absolutely have to look at the fallout. What does this mean for data security, everywhere? The implications are pretty chilling.
Absolutely. Where should we start?
Let's start with the basics. Confidential virtual machines, CVMs. So picture a typical cloud server setup, right? It's kind of like a big apartment building. Historically, the landlord, meaning the cloud admin, they had the master key. They could theoretically get into any apartment.
Right. That was the standard model.
CVMs are supposed to change all that. They're meant to be like this ultra-reinforced digital safe room inside that building.
Okay. I like the analogy.
The whole idea is you can run your most critical stuff, think banking software, secret encryption keys, maybe your company's secret sauce algorithms inside this room.
Right.
And the promise is even the landlord, the cloud provider, cannot get inside, can't see the data, can't mess with it while it's actually running.
And AMD's specific tech for making this happen, the one targeted here, it's called Secure Encrypted Virtualization with Secure Nested Paging. Quite a mouthful.
SCV-SNP.
SNP, exactly. And it's really an architectural thing. It's built into the silicon. The idea is once a CVM is up and running, the memory it uses gets locked down.
Let the hardware lock. Yeah,
it's encrypted right there.
Right.
So the operating system outside the CVM, the hypervisor managing the virtual machines, the admin logging in.
They just see garbage.
They just see encrypted garbage. Total gibberish. The whole point is creating these hardware-enforced walls that nothing outside the CVM should be able to cross, period.
Okay, so if you've got this isolated CVM, the system must need some kind of, like a master list, a map maybe, to know exactly which bits of memory belong to that CVM and need protecting.
Absolutely. That map is, well, it's the absolute heart of the system. It's called the Reverse Map Paging Table, the RMP table.
RMP table, okay.
Think of it like the ultimate permission ledger for the server's memory. It's this huge, complex data structure, and it tracks ownership and access rights for every single tiny piece, every page of physical memory.
Every single one.
Every single one. If that RMP map says this memory page belongs to CVM number 5, then bam, the hardware automatically encrypts it, protects it, isolates it.
So that RMP table, it's basically the security Bible for the memory. It must have its own bodyguard, right? Some part of the chip whose only job is to protect that ledger.
Precisely. And that bodyguard is the Platform Security Processor, or PSP.
The PSP.
Yep. It's a separate little processor, like a dedicated security coprocessor, embedded right onto the main AMD chip.
Okay.
Its whole purpose is to run independently. It doesn't answer to the main OS, not to the user's code. Its job includes locking down that RMP table when a secure CVM starts up.
So it throws the deadbolt on the ledger.
Exactly. It's supposed to make sure that no malicious software and, critically, no sneaky cloud admin who might have root access to the server can just waltz in and rewrite the memory ownership rules in the RMP table. If the PSP doesn't do its job right, the whole trust model just collapses.
And this is where it gets really wild. The researchers from ETH Zurich, they found the RMPocalypse problem wasn't like bad code in the PSP itself or weak encryption.
Right.
It was the timing. when the PSP was supposed to lock that door. So why wasn't the lock engaged before someone could break in?
This is the kind of subtle architectural detail that makes this vulnerability so effective and frankly scary.
Yeah.
See, for a CVM to even start, that R&T table has to be created, right? It needs to be initialized, populated with all the correct permissions for that new CVM.
Okay, makes sense. It's setting up the room.
Exactly. And during that setup phase, that boot phase, the system is incredibly busy. It's mapping memory, assigning who owns what, setting up identities.
A lot going on.
A lot going on. And the core problem is there's this incredibly tiny window of time, like fractions of a second, during that initialization, where the RMP table is active, it's being written to, it's operational, but the PSP security lockdown, the rules that say nobody else can touch this, aren't fully switched on yet. They haven't fully kicked in.
Wow. So you've got this split second where the most critical security map for the whole server is basically sitting there exposed because the PSP is like still punching the clock.
That's a pretty good way to put it, yeah. It's not quite ready yet. And an attacker who really understands the server's internal boot sequence.
And has high-level access.
And crucially, has that high-level access, think a malicious insider at the cloud provider, or maybe a state-level attacker who got deep into the infrastructure.
Right.
They can time their attack, they know when that window opens, and they can slip their malicious instruction in right then.
At the hypervisor level, you said?
Yes, operating from the hypervisor, which normally manages the VMs but shouldn't touch their protected memory. During that brief initialization window, they just need to inject one tiny, carefully crafted instruction.
And the sources we looked at really emphasized how surgically precise this is. It's not like flooding the system with bad code.
No, not at all.
It's changing just 8 bytes in this massive RMP security map.
8 single bytes. It's almost unbelievable. To put that in context for you, that's less data than your average tweet, maybe just a couple of words.
And that's enough to break everything.
It's enough to completely poison the well, as they say. What the attacker does is find the entry in the RMP table for a specific page of the CVM's memory, and they flip a couple of bits in those 8 bytes.
Flip the bits, meaning?
Meaning they change the flags. They change the part that says, this page is protected, hands off, belongs to the CVM, and they change it to say, actually, this page is accessible to the host hypervisor.
Oh, well.
They essentially redraw the boundary lines on the master map itself, tricking the hardware. The system doesn't realize the map it's relying on has been subtly corrupted.
So it's not just about reading the CVM's memory anymore. It's fundamentally telling the hardware, hey, you're supposed to let me, the hypervisor, access this supposedly secure memory.
Exactly. And once that RMP map is compromised, even by those 8 bytes, well, all those promises, all those guarantees of integrity, confidentiality, the whole point of the CVM, they just evaporate. Instantly, the foundation is cracked.
So what did the researchers, Benedikt Schlitter and Shweta Shinde, what did they actually show could happen once they did this?
They demonstrated total control. This isn't like a partial data leak. It's full command and control over the supposedly secure CVM, meaning the attacker can tamper with whatever the CVM is doing. They can inject their own malicious code into the CVM to watch processes, steal data live, and they can bypass pretty much every security check inside the CVM that relies on that RMP map being correct, which is basically all of them.
That sounds like the absolute worst case scenario isn't just, data leakage, but complete undetected theft of secrets while they're being used.
That's exactly it.
What kind of secrets were they able to pull out?
The potential is literally 100% extraction. Once you control the memory map, the CVM is an open book. So think about session keys for secure connections, intellectual property, sensitive algorithms, proprietary AI models.
Financial data, health records.
Financial transactions happening live, patient health records being processed, anything the CVM was designed to protect. If that data is active inside the CVM's memory, the attacker can potentially grab it.
And you mentioned something even more insidious, something about forging security checks. That sounds terrifying.
Yes, and this might be the most dangerous part, actually. Modern cloud security, especially for CVMs, relies heavily on something called attestation.
Attestation, right? That's like the CVM proving it's secure.
Exactly. It's how you, the user, or your application can cryptographically verify that the CVM you're talking to is genuine, running the right code, on secure hardware, and hasn't been tampered with.
Okay.
RMPocalypse lets the attacker break in, steal the secrets, and then forge the attestation reports that the CVM sends out.
No. So it looks secure.
It looks perfectly secure. The attacker can make the compromised CVM lie and say, everything's fine, totally secure here. You get a green check mark on your security dashboard.
While your data is being siphoned off.
Precisely. While the attacker has full control, it makes detection incredibly difficult for the end user, maybe even impossible, and very hard even for the cloud provider.
That is deeply unsettling. So, okay, let's talk about scale. Which chips are affected? How widespread is this potential problem?
And this is where it becomes a major industry concern. The vulnerability affects multiple generations of AMD's high-end server processors. We're talking specifically the EPYC and the EPYC embedded series.
These aren't the chips in your laptop.
No. These are the big guns. The heavy-duty processors that power massive data centers all over the world. They're the workhorses.
So Azure, Google Cloud, AWS, big private clouds.
If you're using confidential computing services, particularly on Azure or Google Cloud, which are known users of EPYC, or if your company runs its own private cloud on AMD hardware, then yes, you were potentially exposed to this risk until the systems got patched.
Okay, so patching must have been urgent. What was the industry response? You can't just leave a vulnerability like that sitting there, right? At the foundational level.
No, absolutely not. The response, thankfully, seems to have been pretty coordinated and quick. AMD, once notified by the researchers, developed and released firmware updates.
Firmware, so it's deep in the chip's code.
Exactly. It's not just a software patch you download. The fix specifically targets that tiny timing window during initialization. It ensures the PSP's security lockdowns on the RMP table are active right from the absolute start, no more gap.
Closes the window.
Closes the window.
And what about the big cloud providers who built services on these chips?
They had to react fast, too. Microsoft publicly confirmed they were rolling out updates across their Azure Confidential Computing fleet, which relies heavily on these AMD EPYC processors.
Right.
But again, because it's a hardware-level fix needing firmware, it's not trivial. Server makers, like Supermicro, for example, had to notify all their customers using these chips that a mandatory BIOS update was needed on the physical servers.
Wow, yeah, that's a huge operational lift. Imagine updating the BIOS on potentially thousands, hundreds of thousands of servers worldwide running critical stuff.
It really underscores the challenge, doesn't it? Patching hardware foundations is a much heavier lift than patching software.
It really brings home that whole cat and mouse game. You have hardware designers building this incredibly complex, layered fortress.
Trying to anticipate everything.
Right. And then security researchers just need to find that one flaw, maybe not even in the design itself, but in the process, like this split-second timing error. And suddenly, the whole elaborate structure can come crashing down. It's just this constant high-stakes race.
It truly is.
So I think the big takeaway here from RMPocalypse, for you listening, isn't necessarily that confidential computing is broken or that we should abandon it.
No, not at all. It serves a vital purpose.
But it's a stark reminder, isn't it, that security often breaks, not because someone cracked incredibly complex encryption, but because of seemingly simple, almost mundane errors. Flaws in basic processes, in timing, in how components are allowed to trust each other at startup.
Exactly.
That tiny 8-byte change slipped into a microsecond gap. That was the difference between total security and potentially total exposure.
And that really leaves us with a final thought to chew on, something quite provocative, I think.
Okay.
If this foundational hardware, right, the stuff engineered to be the ultimate digital vault, designed to resist even the owner of the server, if that can be fundamentally compromised by changing just 8 bytes during a split-second timing error, what does that really tell us about the sheer complexity of managing trust across these enormous interconnected cloud networks we all rely on? Every security promise depends on a chain of trust, link by link. RMPocalypse forces us to ask, how often do we need to question, to really scrutinize and re-verify the basic integrity of the fundamental hardware processes running underneath everything? The stuff we assume just works. It's a question that's definitely going to shape how data centers think about security from the ground up moving forward.